Superman game. It was like, I remembered enjoying it a lot, but I think we played it at the 7-Eleven. Or something like that. I don't remember necessarily being at an arcade and playing. I feel like it was like some weird kind of side place.
Yeah, where was that? Dave would know. Hi, everybody. I was surprised when we went there to the Lowell Retro Arcade, and they had Superman there. It was great and wonderful, and I didn't even play it once. So, they had a bunch of machines, and it was, you pay either $8 for an hour or $12, and you can come and go as you please. It's no quarters involved. You just play all you want to. There's pinball machines. There was an N64. There was all kinds of arcade games, old retro ones, and they were the originals. They weren't like some revamp or anything like that. They were originals.
Wow.
Asteroid and the Captain America and the Avengers, and they had the X-Men, which I then proceeded to conquer the entire thing.
Really? You
yeah.
still remembered the moves?
I went and defeated Magneto. Oh yeah. They had all kinds of games there. All the ones you would think of. My older boys went with me, and we all had a good time.
How many games would you say? I mean, like, you kind of rattled off quite a few, but
let's see: Donkey Kong Jr., Pac-Man, Miss Pac-Man, Superman, Captain America, Avengers. They had a police shooting game that my number 2 son liked a lot. They had a couple racing games, including Pole Position. They had a game that Aaron and I used to play called Xevious.
Oh, yep. That was like a near impossible game.
Yeah. Popeye and
Burger Time at all?
No, I don't think they had Burger Time, but they had some other shooting game. Like I said, they had a bunch of pinballs, and some of the pinball machines were a little newer. Like they had the Mandalorian one and stuff like that. So it's a nice little setup there. And they had places you could play board games, like if you were there all day.
So it's almost like a mini convention center. Like,
yeah, a little bit.
To fully geek out at if you wanted to.
Yeah, I would recommend going there if you have a free day or a couple hours to kill. It worked for me.
Yeah, and there was a place in our mall that was actually, it was like Pac-Man Arcade, and they were officially licensed, but then eventually it kind of, I wouldn't say caught up with them, but they more or less, they lost the license, and all of a sudden it was no longer Pac-Man. They had a giant Pac-Man. They had all this stuff, but it just kind of like, well, nope, we're no longer that. And so now they still have all the video games and all the arcade stuff, but
now they're Mac-Man.
Yeah, mad. Yeah. It's just like we're just a little bit off. It's a cube with a big mouth in it. Yeah, munching on things. And in the immortal words of, kind of paraphrasing Weird Al, it's like, I'll be mellow when I'm dead, as they say.
Weird Al. I miss him.
Yeah. Hey, he's actually supposedly coming to Benton Harbor area, going to appear at the local junior college.
Well, all right.
So I
like Weird Al, and I'm sure he'd be a lot of fun to see live. I know Aaron saw him a couple times, but I've never seen him, and I'm kind of out of my Weird Al phase. But every once in a while, I'll binge listen for a while, but I'm not sure if he holds up in my head.
Yeah. I subjugated my son to watching UHF, and the classic UHF movie, and he seemed to enjoy it, at least to my face, and it has some funny moments in it.
Not what his diary said.
Yeah.
Another 2 hours I can't get back.
Yeah. I just have to nod my head and go, uh-huh. Yeah, certainly. That was enjoyable.
Great, Dad.
Yeah. Yeah, it's gonna be another awkward day because we're doing this again.
That's almost 30 years ago. You know that, right?
Isn't that scary? You know, that the 90s.
That's frightening.
Yeah. And when the oldies station is playing the 80s music.
And it's considered oldies?
And it's considered oldies.
And that's why I love old farts.
I know, kidding. This is just us, warming up to get to our full cantankerous levels.
Right. Doesn't take much.
Nope. We'll find out.
No, you're about to see some cantankerousness.
Well, back in my day,
I'm about to date myself a big time. You're listening to, and this is why I love comics.
Andy and Mike!
And welcome to another episode of And This Is Why I Love Comics. I'm Andy.
I'm Mike.
And hi. Welcome. How are you? Great. Okay, great. We are the podcast of cantankerous old men. I'm slightly older than Mike, but not by much. We're old. We love comics. We love talking about comics. Let's just admit, we love talking. So I said, hey, Mike, why don't we do a podcast where we can just talk? And you said, no way.
Yeah. Where's the paycheck? I'm still looking for that paycheck.
$30,000 later, you still said, no way. No class. And
school on a Saturday. A teacher on vacation.
So that's what we do.
Class.
We talk about things. Last episode, we talked about Darwin Cook's New Frontier, and we talked about our top 10 movie list, and that was really popular. We've gotten some comments on that people laughed at our list, and
yeah, you call those good movies,
right? And we also heard from co-host Kevin, who finally was listening to some older episodes. He was catching up. And he, I don't know what episode it was that we were talking about Propeller Man, but we offered Propeller Man
much for the free podcast.
But we talked about Propeller Man and how he should buy them from you, and he said he's not interested.
Can't convince him to pick up that series of books.
Nice try, but Kevin, I have a One Punch Man, a graphic novel that I will sell you.
On the cheap.
What do you mean by that? Yeah, and we're talking about One Punch Man. We thought we'd talk about some manga, or as they like to say in the South, some manga.
Manga. I hear if you got to cut that just right though.
Yeah, I can't do it.
You got to watch out for the giant seed in the middle of it.
We thought we'd try this. Well, I thought I would try this newfangled manga, and you've read some. I know you have. And I've read Akira. Does that count?
Yeah,
okay,
technically,
okay.
yes.
Okay, good. So I'm a pro, too.
The best place to start.
Yeah. I should have stopped after that.
Yeah.
There's a little foreshadowing. It's outgrossing American comics by like 8,000 billion percent.
It's pretty ridiculous.
Yeah. And so I wanted to see what all the hype was about. Mike suggested One Punch Man, and I have a nephew that loves One Punch Man. Last I heard.
But... Yeah. He was probably thinking like, I got this sucker to buy the One Punch Man.
But so we're going to talk about that in a little bit, and we'll probably find some other things to talk about, like Akira and manga itself. It's comics or graphic novels originating from Japan. Most manga conform to a style developed in Japan in the late 19th century, and the form has a long prehistory. Yeah, I just read that off of Google. Mm-hmm.
I was going to say, wow, you sound really insightful.
Right. I was doing some research on why I even bothered to read this. It's referred to both comics and cartooning. Outside of Japan, the word is typically used to refer to comics originally published in the country. So in order to be a manga, it must be made in Japan, is what I'm getting. Right?
Yeah.
I mean,
correct.
There's American manga. It's not really manga, right?
Yeah, there's a lot of things that we just kind of like claim whether or not we have rights to claim it. Yeah, there's a lot, and there's a lot that's like knockoff too. But you can see that, the influence that this has carries over to, other countries more so than it has even in the U.S. And the U.S. is probably the last bastion kind of holding out against it.
Yeah, but I don't think it's holding out any longer.
Not really, yeah. Yeah, when you go into like a Barnes and Noble, any like a chain bookstore, it is just, you may have a shelf for, the big two, the graphic novels from the US, any sort of trade paperback, whatever. But it is 3 to 4 bookshelves of just manga books.
And I have number 3 son. He loves manga. So he's my manga go-to person. And he said I'd like One Punch Man as well. He reads a lot of other stuff, but he's really just getting into it too. So, but he has a lot of influence. I think friends from school and stuff that also read it. I know you've read some, and your son has read some. What's your feeling on this art form?
I do see a lot of appeal that it has, and a lot of the interest that it has, because it if you look at the United States and the comics that are being produced, there's 2 different issues. One, and no pun intended, but one of them is the fact that, if you buy a comic in the US, you're going to get a comic about a series of stories or a particular group. So if you buy a Fantastic Four, you're going to get a Fantastic Four story. And then next month, you're going to get another issue of Fantastic Four. But for the most part, one of the biggest sellers in Japan is like the Shonen Jump books. Those are like a collection. So you'll get like a Dragon Ball Z, you'll get a My Hero Academia, you'll get, some other little short serialized books in a fat trade paperback on a monthly basis. So you buy one of those and you get like 4 or 5 different stories going in it. So those are really, really popular, and you can get a subscription. And that's where like One Punch Man really, excels, is that it's in there. One Piece is another one that's in those Shonen Jump books, and they'll serialize all these things into little chapters. And then when you get the manga that you got, it's basically they've collected all those individual stories over months and then put them into a trade.
Okay, that makes sense.
So it's, for one, you're getting a variety. It's the buffet of books. So if you don't like a particular story in your Shonen Jump, just jump to the next chapter, next little next comic that's in the book. So that makes it a lot easier, and it's for your money, it's a better value, because you get a Bendis book and you're like, oh crap, I got to read 5 issues before anything happens at all. It's just a bunch of talking heads, and you're like, finally something's happening, and it wasn't worth it. Here it's like, well, yeah, maybe one of the stories in it, maybe not much is happening, but the next story in the serialized book has a lot going on, so it kind of paces itself better in that way. And it doesn't overstay its welcome, because there's a lot of comics that I've read, especially in the current comics, where it's like they're struggling to fill those pages. It used to be that it was just rock'em sock'em robots, punch for pages, and there was plot that led to it, but it was a lot of fighting. Now the fighting's almost off camera in modern comics. It's just like, and they fought, or there might be one big punch that wraps things up, and you're like,
Kind of like this book.
Well, and that's what this thing's kind of making fun of, is like, what happens when someone's so powerful. And then the other aspect is that there's such a wider variety of books that you can, in subject matters in manga, than there is in the US. for the most part in the U.S., it's almost all spandex from the big two. At one point, you think about when like Marvel back in the Silver Age and DC as well, they both kicked out like westerns. They kicked out romance. They had war, comics. They had all sorts of variety of stories, monster issues. And then when the Silver Age really kicked into full and high gear, and then moved into the Bronze Age, all that stuff just went away. There wasn't Millie the Model. There wasn't Betty. Is it Betty King or what? Who was
Betty Boop?
Yeah, there wasn't her either.
Betty and Veronica.
No, there was another one that was kind of along those same lines, but it was kind of like the Big Two's answer to. I feel like it's Betty Keene.
Betty Keene, yeah, it was.
So those books, and then the Weird Wars, the
Strange Tales,
all that, the horror comics went away, obviously for other, but this is after the Wortham issues. So this is Comic Code Authority was in effect, but all the monster titles, so they all went away. So all that was left was for the most part, there wasn't another cowboy comic. When was the last time you saw a cowboy comic coming out of the United States? Obviously right. Mobius had his run.
Dynamite had some, but yeah, they had the Long Ranger.
That's right. That they do kick those things out. That's true. I forgot, yeah. But that's a license,
right? Yeah,
it used to be that they would just have
generic
the Rawhide Kid,
Jonah Hex,
Kid Colt. Yeah, Jonah Hex. And they're just not there. So you go over to the
DC
manga.
Will try it once in a while, but just doesn't catch. I don't think readers want to read it.
Yeah, but I think some of it is just to kind of maintain the rights.
Yeah.
Because I remember that was like, they kind of had to do that with like Ghost Rider and some of the other characters is like, in order to kind of keep those characters within their copyright, they have to every so often throw them back out there. Otherwise, because I think that's why, Captain Marvel, when I'm bringing her up, one of the key reasons why they keep bringing her is that the moment they stop publishing the Captain Marvel book, then DC will come back and rename the original Captain Marvel Captain Marvel. And trying to get
I thought you said they'll rename the original Captain Marvel Mark.
Yeah. Look up in the sky. It's a bird. It's a plane. Mark. It's Mark. The big red Mark. Like with manga, you can easily have a Dungeons and Dragons adventure. You could have a series of monster books. You can have a series of teen romance books. You can have anything, and it's all just as easily acceptable.
Okay, but my question is, if American readers will read that from the manga publishers, why don't they buy more from the DC and Marvel when they try it? Like, it bombs. Like, it just falls flat.
Yeah.
Is it?
I think it's more that there's probably twofold, in my opinion. And obviously, I have no, analytics.
Based on your research.
The research of what am I just thinking of at this exact moment. But I feel like one of the key reasons why they're not reading them when Marvel and DC comes out with it is that it doesn't seem genuine. It's not coming from a place where they feel like they're really going to back it up. So think about where really good movies suffer because they didn't, the studios didn't have enough faith in it, so they didn't market it very well.
Sorry, we mentioned that every episode. I just had to get.
So you just had to throw that in. Yeah. I understand.
Yeah.
But because if they didn't market it well, because they just don't have faith in a thing, then it bombs, and you get kind of that gun shy of like, well, we're going to give this a try, and they're not. And I think that's where, again, having this sampler pack, like the Shonen Jump, and it's just, there's one that's more aimed towards boys, which is the Shonen Jump. And then there's, I think it's like Shobin Beat or something like that. Shoujo Beat, where it's more stories leaning more towards a girl audience is what they're trying for.
Right. Because it's okay to try and market to different genders.
Correct. And
Yes.
that's what they do that quite a bit. And what works in that magazine, both those publications, and I don't think that the Shoujo Beat is still going around necessarily, but the intent of it was to basically, you can sample things out. You can try it, and then if you really like it, then you wait for the manga editions of it. There, when you buy a $5 comic from one of the big two, it's like you're dropping $5 on 22 pages of maybe okay writing, maybe okay art. Clearly they're not putting their 100% behind it.
Is the manga we see also published over there? Like, are we getting the same books that the people in Japan are, or are we getting an Americanized, directed? I don't know.
It depends. There are some publishing houses, especially early on. Like if you were getting I can't remember if it's pronounced Comico, Miko, when they would pull in, stuff and publish, like, let's say, a Crying Freeman or something going way back when. I don't think that was them, and that might have been Fantagraphics or something like that. I can't remember who printed that. Some of that stuff has been highly sanitized for Western audiences, so it isn't exactly the same. But I believe today, obviously some things just get lost in translation.
Yeah.
But the book itself is identical to what you're getting overseas.
Okay, that's why I wondered that. And I was pretty sure we were getting the same. I mean, it might be translated a bit different and everything, but I wondered if it was just these are what the Americans will like, so this is what I'm going to put here, or and this is just for us, kind of thing.
Well, there's a lot of things that are, by tradition, things that are very different in Japan and accepted over there that would not fly here.
They show more boobies over there.
Yeah. But yeah, there's. I was kind of
so I've heard.
Yeah. So there's a rumor going around that these things exist like that.
I don't know what I'm talking about.
But yeah, culturally, there's a lot that's different. They adopt and they accept a lot of things that we wouldn't, because if you even watch My Neighbor Totoro, it's a great animated movie, but then it shows a family in the bathtub together.
Right.
And it's like, I would never think about getting into the tub with my kids.
Right.
Kind of a thing.
So, and we watched that over here, and it's like there's a momentary pause where we're all looking at the TV like, is he really in the bathtub with her? And then and you realize there's cultural differences and that there's nothing weird. It's weird, but it's only weird to us because we think of other things. It must not be weird for that culture. It's different.
Having, World War II and the conclusion of it, that has clearly defined their culture in a lot of ways too, of, the monsters and, the radioactivity of, having 2 atomic bombs dropped on you, has affected their culture dramatically as well. And so, that still shows up. That's where a lot of these monsters and these, a lot of them come from, radiation. And, Godzilla was a direct response to it. And then Shin Godzilla was another kind of follow-up of nuclear.
We all love you, Gamera.
He's filled with turtle meat. He's a friend to all girls and boys. There's a lot, and they produce a lot of things, and there's, where in the States, I think a lot of the superheroes have striking similarities to a point where you're like, boy, there really isn't a whole lot of difference here between this one and this one. There's not a whole lot going on between this one and this one. But in Japan, you might have a superhero title like One Punch Man that kind of takes the tropes of superheroes and, makes fun of them So you get that hint of superheroes, you get that hint of humor, you get this hint of the seriousness, you get the hint of danger, you get, so there's a lot more, but emotions packed in a single issue, if you would, than you probably get from, let's say, an issue of Superman. There's not a lot of joking around. There's not a lot of like, oh, that was just silly to be silly. And then the next panel is like deadly serious, so this, has a lot more engagement. They're not necessarily afraid to wrap up a series. There's a finite number of, stories they want to tell, and then they wrap it up. And then there's some things that they kind of wrap it up with one series and they pick it up with another. I like this one called Black Butler, and they have very much like stopping points and jumping on points. They change up the story quite a bit in later later parts of the series. And then there's also others that go on forever with the same creative team. Like One Piece is just, so if you want to read something and you want to just stay in a world that's been created by an individual, so to speak, this has been written and illustrated by the same guy. I cannot pronounce his name, but it's basically come out every week since the late 90s.
Wow.
It is just a ridiculous amount of books, and you think about every week you're putting together several pages, chapters, a chapter a week since the 90s. That's quite a bit.
Yeah.
So a lot of them will be, serialized like this, and then if it catches on enough, they'll make an animated series.
Okay.
And then sometimes it's the other way around. There's an animated series, and then poof. One of the shows that my son and I were watching was the animation team that had helped with Batman the Animated Series had done it, and it's called The Big O. And it only ran on Cartoon Network for one season, and then due to kind of the popularity, it tanked. It bombed, but it had a following afterwards, and enough people kind of clamored for it that they did do a final season to kind of wrap up the story and give you some closure to it. But it was supposed to be like 4 or 5 seasons, so they kind of rushed it a little bit in the end. But if you watch The Big O, you can see a lot of Batman in it.
Okay.
And so there's some things where, whatever your interest is in, they probably have a manga that is closely aligned to your particular interest or flavor of what you want to read. You want to read about, a French maid that comes down and kicks alien butt?
Yes.
Several of those books out there. You want to read about, a child who sells his soul in order to return and get more power?
Yes.
Then yeah, there's plenty of those books, know, and so there's a lot in the plots, and the stories are far different from what you're going to get from the US, because the US is like, I've got a secret identity. I can't let anybody know. This is, I was traumatized as a child. I saw the death of my parents, and my mom's pearl necklace snapped and fell to the ground. And you're just like, yeah, but when you got 12 to 20 some odd Batman books, you kind of get a little tired of Batman, but here it's like, well, you like giant robots? What kind of giant robots do you like? Well, we got this kind, we got this kind, we got this kind, we got this kind. So there's a variety, even if in the subgenres. So if you like the dark and gloomy and moody of Batman, there's plenty of books that kind of emulate that on their end, but then they will also throw in a little bit of humor. They'll throw in a little side character here or there that'll show up that'll kind of, bring some levity. So I can see why there's an appeal to it, but there's something different about holding a thin, floppy single issue versus that trade paperback. Just something more like this almost feels and looks like a book, where you grab a comic book and it's like, yeah, you just kind of got next to nothing.
Yeah.
And the prices, you get a trade paperback of any of the manga, you're paying what, like $8 an issue?
Yeah, this one
for a trade.
This one was $9.99.
Okay, so $10, and you get how many pages are in that?
At least 150.
Yeah, so you get 150 pages for $10.
No, it's more like 100. Yeah, that's almost 200 pages.
Oh, yeah, so even more. Versus you get a DC single issue of DC or Marvel. You're paying $5 for 22 pages.
Right.
Granted, it's on high quality paper. It's got computer coloring.
Right.
It's, it's got all these little bells and whistles, but, at the end of the day, could that story have been told in black and white? Or did it absolutely have to have that color?
Right.
And so you're getting a better value and you can almost justify the expense. It's like, it's getting harder and harder for people to justify $5 for 20 pages.
Yeah.
And especially when nothing happens in those 20 pages.
The book we're talking about is One Punch Man. The story was by One, conveniently named after One Punch Man, probably.
He sees himself in the book.
Right. The art was Yusuke Murata. And like Mike said, it's all black and white. It's almost 200 pages. At least the trade that I got. I did like the shortened, manga comes a little shorter than the rest. And like you said, I didn't think about it, it does kind of feel like you're reading a book rather than just a couple issues. Even an American trade, it's a little oversized and all that stuff. I kind of like the feel of this small book in my hand. And of course, you read it from right to left, as is tradition over there. But can we talk about the art for a second before we talk about the story? Now, the cover I have, I'm sure this is a more modern take, but it was really a great cover. It doesn't say who did it, but the cover
painted look
is it's painted. It's in color. It looks really cool. And then you go inside and it's all black and white, which does not bother me. I thought maybe that might be one of the reasons I didn't like the story, because let's be honest, I didn't like it. But it isn't. I do like black and white. I actually prefer it sometimes than color because you get to see the artist and the inker just go at it, and you're not blinded by what the colorist adds to it, which, I mean, isn't necessarily bad, but and some of the series we've talked about in the past, the coloring really helped around them. And
yeah, explain what the heck is it I'm looking at.
But I gotta say, art-wise, great detail, funny, and wonderful comic telling. But is it me that, and I've read other manga, that all the art kind of is the same? Like, is there where American comics have a Tim Sale, George Perez, McFarlane, Liefeld, like there's a variety of different styles, and I'm not saying that Japanese don't have different styles, but they are all, to me, kind of have the same formulaic look. And is that a thing, or is there like a Bill Sienkiewicz Japanese type style somewhere that I just haven't seen?
Yeah, I mean, there are a few variants. Not, and even then, some of the variants aren't that great as far as like, being that dramatically different. You'll find that there's some, but a lot of them are done by studios, where there's somebody who's drawing the people, then there's somebody drawing the backgrounds, and then there's somebody, there's a background artist, there's the character artist, there's a layout artist, so a lot of times there's a series of people involved, and then they kind of jump ship. And that's why, like, you can see it's the same thing here in the US when you look at cars. At one point, car manufacturers, you could tell that was a Ford from a mile away. You could tell that was a Chevy, but because the engineers and industrial designers that they had from, Chevy got, pulled over to work at GM or Ford or whatever, and then they get shuffled around so that there's not really a whole lot of difference between a Ford and a Chevy anymore, because the people behind the scenes were at all the places and influenced them all. The one I got, my son and I were kind of hooked on, is Lupin the Third, and that's by Monkey Punch. He's got, but this is a little bit of a cheat, because Monkey Punch is obviously, he's no longer with us, but he drew the book back in the 70s is when Lupin the Third started, and it has a very distinctly 70s look to him. But the art, has a very unique and look to it in the 70s, but if you look at Lupin of today, it's kind of falling a little bit more and more into the standard manga approach. There was probably a lot more variety back in the day, but not probably as visually different today, because there's a lot, like I said, there's schools out there. And you can see what's happening here in the US is the same way when it comes to like animation, is that there's that Cal Art approach to a lot of animation. So that when you look at something like Gravity Falls, and then you look at Steven Universe, and then you look at Gumball, and you look at, those are all Cal Art students that got out of there, and they all draw pretty much the same. And even Pixar is now rolled into that with the, whatever the Red Panda movie is.
Yeah.
That they all have that.
I think it's just called Red.
Yeah. Well, there we go. I didn't watch it, but
Me neither.
It's all homogenized, in its look. So it's kind of lost some of it. There was one I was just going through, and I can't remember what it's called. It's like Shin Chan, Shin Chan, Chan. If you look that up, that's got a very, very different look. So there's like Shin Chan in space, and Shin Chan, he's got offshoot series. Is this little boy, he's I think 5 years old, and he has adventures with his parents, and they just get themselves into one mess after another.
Okay. And that does look a little different than the norm.
Yeah. But I mean, it does exist kind of like how there's, the Marvel's house style. It's like how to draw comics the Marvel way, when it was John Buscema's art. And that had influenced so many artists of that era that they all looked like John Buscema, more or less.
Yeah.
Whereas, so the same thing happens, here is that a lot of them look the same, but there are a few Bill Stanchevitz out there that just shake it up a little bit. So it's not exactly the same.
And I wasn't trying to say that all of them, all the artists look alike, because my very limited knowledge of what Barnes & Noble sells probably doesn't depict even half of what is out there. And I certainly haven't done any full-on manga research. I'm starting on One Punch Man. I mean, don't get me wrong. I've watched all the Totoro type movies, and I know that's anime, but I'm not totally ignorant on the Japanese influence of manga and stuff. There's some things I like. We've talked about Akira, and I've read the comic version of that, and it's excellent. And I've I love Cowboy Bebop. So I mean, it's in there. It's in me. I know it's in me. I feel it. But so I thought I'd start with One Punch Man, and
great place to start.
It was created in 2009. It was originally a webcomic, so I'm willing to give it a little slack. And you're telling me it was a parody of a superhero, and I understand that, but I was kind of bored with it. I like the art. I like the art and everything, but it was, especially early on, I'm sure I'm still trying to find my legs. I got this great idea. Oh no, it got popular. Let me do some more kind of thing. But I was shocked how repetitive it was. It didn't catch with me. Back in my day, I felt that comics had a little more substance. And I'm sure by issue 50 of this book, you hit upon some great revelations and things. I'm hoping this just wasn't for me. I don't get it. I think I'm too old for this, but then you like it, and I don't know. I'm not sure. We've done 23 episodes of this podcast, and I really wanted to be the guy that was converted to manga because that's what all the young kids are reading nowadays. And it can't be a generational thing, right? And just say right.
Right.
I just didn't get it. It wasn't. I mean, some of the art was great, but Dory, I almost felt Jim Starlin wrote it.
At least it's above Bendis, though.
Right? Yeah, absolutely.
Because there's action in it,
at
so
no
that would
point,
prevent it from being.
Right. Things actually happened in these. Yeah. I'm hoping you prove me wrong. Well, I mean, it's my opinion, so I can't be wrong. But I'm hoping you convince me that I, like an Umbrella Academy, just didn't get it. And that it's far deeper and more meaningful, and I just missed the boat on it, and I should do a reread before I throw it in the trash.
Yeah, here's where it gets... Pacing in a lot of Japanese books is very drawn out. I mean, if you've watched any Dragon Ball Z, I don't know if you've watched the show, if you've read any of the books, but they could spend episode upon episode building up their power levels. It may be 2 or 3 episodes before they finally unleash this, amazing power upon that levels mountains. But they're oh my gosh, I have to do this and I can't be interrupted. I have to have this power increase and this boom, and I have to have utter concentration. And so then poof, they build up this power. It's like, I can't believe he's got that much power coming into him, and the other guy just stands on the sideline watching this happen without interference. So it's kind of a weird, but there's a different kind of pacing. And I think it was like Scott McCloud in his book, Understanding Comics.
McCloud.
McCloud.
Sorry, every time I hear that name, I got to say that.
Yeah. The thing with, he had noted was that a lot of the Japanese books take time to take a breath. And you can kind of see it in some aspects, even in Mignola's Hellboy issues. He'll have like a picture of a raven's head. He'll have like a coffee cup picture, a coffee cup on a table. He'll have an angel in the cemetery, tombstone. And it's just those moments that kind of take a breath. And you see it a lot in their anime too, where there's just these quiet moments. So they pace things considerably different than we do here in the U.S. because it's like everything's got to have. Something's got to be, either somebody's talking, somebody's doing something. It's got to advance the plot in some way. And that's one of the things with this book, especially One Punch Man, is that it's kind of taking a lot of the tropes that we see here in the States and kind of just somewhat making fun of it. It's kind of like, here comes this creature so massive. So just kind of hitting up on chapter 1.
Yeah. Okay. Tell me what this book is about.
Okay. Yeah. I can. So One Punch Man is obviously it's a hero who's a hero only for fun. He's doing this because he's just wants to have fun at being a hero. There's no other motive than that. And, it's kind of the antithesis of Batman, the Grim Avenger, or Superman. I fight for the rights of others. And it's like, nope, I'm just doing this because I want to do it, and it's kind of fun to do it. The downside is that One Punch Man has gotten so good that he's no longer having fun doing it, because all the villains that he encounters, all these monsters he's encountering, he wipes them out with a single punch. And it's kind of the take on, like, what would happen if a superhero was so powerful? What would stand up against them? What would they do? What kind of activities would they take if there was nothing that could potentially stop that hero? Like when Superman was able to move planets and, pull planets on a chain, rearrange solar systems on his own. It's like, what can you do with that kind of a character? What can you pit against him? And in later issues of this, he actually fights, like, there's another character who is kind of along a similar path, but on the evil bent. And he was like a disciple of another character called Punch, and there's like a whole subplot of these other characters that One Punch Man never really is he's the main character, but because he defeats things in one punch, it's a lot of it's about these other ancillary characters that come into play, and what happens with them and their stories. The story is based on him, this guy who, got his butt handed to him, and he realized he had to be a hero, and that was what he's going to do. And he's going to perfect his fighting style and be the best hero ever. And he just trained himself to be so good that nothing can stand in his way. And when he does punch, it just completely obliterates any competition or any opposition that he's put up against.
I used to think that his power was, I can punch people and kill them. Like, that's his power. But it's not. He's trained so well, and his power is super strength and flight.
No, he can't fly. He can
jump.
But he's so strong that he can jump as if he can fly.
And he lost all his hair, but is he super strong?
Yeah.
I mean, I've seen him bleed, so he's not, like, invulnerable.
Not invulnerable, no.
But
he's quick. He's perfected being a hero to such a degree that everything he does is like one above everybody else, basically. No matter what they do, he's better than them in that. So you think you're fast? He wound up being faster because he's trained himself. He's perfected himself to such a level. You think you can, out punch him or out fight him, or if you're swinging your punches at the guy, he can outmaneuver them all. And then when he, so, okay, well, now it's my turn, and boom, and he wipes you out in one punch. And then he gets upset because it's like, dang, I'm waiting, because it's not fun to be in a fight when there's no fight
challenge.
To have.
Yeah, he wants the challenge. Which I got all that, I think. And like you said, the ancillary characters, like, I was more interested in the cyborg and the mosquito woman than I was on the main character, which kind of upset me. Like, this title of the character is One Punch Man, and I could care less. But the cyborg guy was cool, and oh, look, there's a mosquito lady. That's interesting. I understand this is book one, and maybe, oh man, I don't know if a one and done, if I would be done. I think I'd be done by now if it was a one and done. Yeah, and I don't want it to be. Like, I really wanted to like this. I wanted to be blown away by it.
I mean, it literally is like a 13-year-old's comic book.
Yeah.
Because you think about it, it's like, okay, he fights monsters. Why do these monsters exist? Where do they come from? What's the backstory? A lot of them never have a backstory. A lot of them never really get explained. Like the lobster guy who comes up in an issue, or the second chapter, and it kind of gives that origin story of what Sayamata is before the transformation. And, it's this lobster dude, and he's wearing again, the comic book trope of, superheroes wearing their underwear on their outside. This dude's legitimately wearing the Y front underwear. The lobster dude's got the underwear on. He's got, and then somebody drew nipples on his lobster shell, his carapace or whatever it's called.
You said nipples.
And so he's going to seek revenge on a little kid because he, had these drawn on him. And then the kid is like, he's described as having a cleft chin. And this kid has basically a butt for a chin. So it's all like 13-year-old jokes. It's like, he's got a butt for a chin.
Right.
That dude's wearing underwear on the outside. That's his superhero costume, is a pair of underwear.
Nipples.
Yeah, so you can see it's really geared towards a young audience, and it's meant to be just perpetually silly about it. And then and unlike the origin stories of Batman and so forth, where it's like I saw my family murdered in front of me, or Superman, I got launched from a planet far away right as it was about to be destroyed. This dude gets kind of beat up, and then it's like, well, I gotta be the hero that this place needs, and so then just goes into training. And it took him 3 years to get to this perfect level, and that's pretty much it. So the second chapter was just kind of that's all you get for the origin. It basically downplays the origin, like what you'd see in the tropes of Western comic books. There's nothing really that great in his origin. He just was like, I'm doing this for fun, and I just trained myself. There isn't any major, like, an alien came down and granted him powers, or he found a magic amulet, and through that magic amulet, he only has 1 hour of sheer powers. It's like, nope, I just trained myself. Everything he encounters is usually some sort of monstrous mutation that just wreaks havoc. It's a very different approach. It's kind of making, like I said, it's a parody of a lot of Western comics of what you think superheroes are.
Yeah.
We take our superheroes so seriously. It's like Superman is the archetypal superhero. Batman is the grim avenger. Wonder Woman's the pinnacle of feminine superheroes. It's just we take them as if they're our myths. And here it's like, no, we're just going to make fun of the fact that your main character is kind of the weakest, most uninteresting, and everybody else is more interesting. And his origin has not much going for it.
Is that it? Is that my fault for my brainwashing by American comics, that I'm too interested in the origin and then it wasn't provided to me very well, so I suddenly became bitter and old? And
yeah, this is new way of thinking. I don't like it. It goes away now. Make it go away. No, I think in this case, it's just, these are very, very serialized. So you don't get a whole lot of story. So you're not getting, this is eating a bag of tortilla chips. It can be somewhat filling, but it's not nutritional, nor is it like truly like going to last and make you full for a very extended period of time. Because these things were in, you got about 8 pages per chapter.
Yeah.
So they're trying to tell a complete story, episodic moment in 8 pages. And it's like, yeah, there's not a whole lot to build characters. But a lot of times with manga, and it's true with animated, anime series as well, is that the first few episodes are to kind of lure you in. And then once you kind of have a semblance of like, okay, yep, I kind of know some of the key players, then we're going to start introducing deeper dives into these other categories, other characters, other world building moments. because there's a whole, there's various levels of superheroes. There's Class S. They're run by the government organizations. They have ridiculous names, ridiculous powers. Really, really hilarious. There's a guy named King, who is like the best superhero of all, but he really isn't that good of a superhero.
Yeah. So this is an early version of The Boys, then, is what you're saying.
Yeah, kind of is. I mean, there's a lot of graphic, violence in this as well to that similar level. But
I did like how they categorized all the cities just by letters. City Z.
City Z, City D,
Right.
City B.
It makes me wonder more about this universe. And then the fact that there's monsters rolling in all the time, just destroying different cities, and everybody's like, yeah, okay, that one's gone now.
Yep, it's just gone. Evacuate that city, evacuate this city. And then there's also there's the threat levels as well. There's threat level dragon, threat level demon, demonic, and there's threat level whatever.
Right.
So they have different, so you'll kind of catch that they start building the world a little bit more. They start building some of these other characters a little bit more. One Punch Man goes through he joins a boxing match, so to speak, like a WrestleMania kind of a deal with the best fighters, because he's so, bored with fighting. He wants to find somebody who's a real fighter. And so he joins this worldwide wrestling kind of a thing. He basically takes everybody out in the process of doing it. But while that's going on, this huge monster invasion's happening right outside the building. And he's zero interest in it because he's trying to find somebody he can fight that's actually better. But then when it does start to interfere with him and his fight, then he's like, oh, well, hold on a second, I got to take care of this. And then pow, then he comes back, all right, let's get back to fighting. It's
so he's not a real hero. He just wants to be the best.
Yeah. And he's already the best. He just wants to have a challenge. He's wanting to have somebody to make this fun for him. And there is later on, he starts talking about how he's lost his humanity. He's lost. That's why his face is usually so blank, that he's lost his curiosity, his anger, his, envy, enthusiasm, all of that stuff is gone because he's perfected his fighting style and his powers to such a level that he's just too perfect. And none of that stuff is now built. All that stuff is below him. It gets better as it goes, but to be honest, you may be better off with the anime in this case, because they do introduce stuff earlier in the anime than they do in the manga. Because in this manga, you're only introduced to One Punch Man, villains he encounters, and then also you get introduced to Genos, the cyborg.
I just looked it up on Amazon. Apparently there's 24 trades. I think you've convinced me that I want to give it another shot, but now that you say the anime, maybe I'll try that next.
Yeah, I would sit down, watch it with your kids.
Can I? There's no nothing really weird.
Not terribly questionable.
I'm not talking about my 3-year-old.
I mean, there's a couple of, I'm trying to think there's a woman's name, but she's one of the top heroes. And she's always got this flowing skirt. I don't think that's really, you're almost on the edge of seeing something, but it's never basically she's got a cut in her skirt. Well, you saw the mosquito woman too.
Is it on a top?
Yeah. I mean, I love James Bond. I will forever be a Bond fan of the real Bond, not the last couple of movies, but the real, but those things were so over the top. I mean, just ridiculous. Xena on the top. Oh, God, dang it. That was Holly Goodnight. There was
Octopussy, of course. On a top.
She's got her dress is cut pretty high. But if you have no issues with that mosquito woman,
no,
then
I wish she was in more of it.
Well, and that's the thing. Again, these things being super serialized, they're kind of just one and done. And it kind of helps give you a bigger sense of the world as well. Because it's these monsters are defeated, and they're defeated to such a degree that they're not coming back.
Right, yeah. Not with the one punch.
Yeah.
And you know what? I just realized what this reminds me of. Looking through the book again really fast, like I just kind of paged through it real quick. This reminds me of Image Comics when Savage Dragon first came out.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just him defeating a bunch of weird people with no explanation. There's the giant dragon guy, and he fights this lion guy, and then the next issue there's whatever. It's just random, seemingly random universe of weirdness, and issue where he meets the turtles, and then the next issue he's punching out a giant robot. It just randomly, and the mosquito girl probably was someone similar in Savage Dragon. Just it kind of reminds me of that, where he's still world building and just throwing out things to see what catches.
And there is there's very much that aspect to this where I think the Savage Dragon he had amnesia, yet he was a cop.
Right, yeah.
So it's like, how does a cop have amnesia? No idea. Why is he still in the force? No idea. And this guy, is just, he's crazy powerful, and nothing can, stand in his way. And then even to the point where that Genos cyborg sees him do what he does, and he just legitimately swats the mosquito woman like you swat a mosquito. And then this Genos guy, who's amazingly powerful on his own right, he's like, I want to be your disciple,
master.
Yeah, and he's like, what? Like when they go to the I think it's called like the House of Evolution or something like that, and it's kind of similar to the High Evolutionary in the Marvel comics.
Okay.
And all the what's the name of the animals that he's mutated in that comic? That comic character, the High Evolutionary, did like that. They're like the animatons or something like that.
It's not the UFOs, is it? No.
It may be. I don't know if there was only something that we could tap into that would be able to just look up something without having to.
I don't think there is. I don't think that science has been perfected yet.
Well, unfortunately, the UFOs are not them. The UFOs
I didn't
were
think
like an
so.
attempt to recreate the Fantastic Four.
Right.
But regardless, this guy is experimenting with all these animals and tries to make, to evolve animals to a higher level.
Was it just the New Men? I think it was the New Men.
It could be.
Local animals into half human, half animal beings that he dubbed his New Men.
Okay. It's kind of a play off of that character and the ridiculous, plot of, I've created the ultimate hybrid that advanced this creature to such a degree that it's unstoppable. And then, One Punch Man just watches him do what he wants to do, and then, of course, does what he does and closes it up. Yeah, I mean, when the character only has that one feat, one ability of just whatever I punch, it kind of ends whatever story you're going to go, because it's like, yeah, he's defeated him.
Right, and that's why he becomes secondary, is because he's not that interesting.
Yeah, he's so overpowered that they can't really do anything with him.
Yeah,
and so it's just him on a quest for a fight, and then whenever there's a fight about to begin, and you're like, oh, dang it, and you feel his frustration that he's not able to get a fight out of it either.
Right. Is this a series that continues to this day?
I think it's wrapped up. I feel like it's wrapped up, or it's about to, because the villain basically becomes a god and wipes out, not that, spoiler alerts, but basically nothing can stand against the main villain, who's basically absorbed everyone else's powers. Everybody he's defeated, and it's just down to One Punch Man and this guy, and that's it. And for the life of me, he's like, It's not Genos because that's the cyborg, but it's something very similar to that name. I can't remember. So it's a ridiculous power creep, and it's usually the same villain that keeps coming back, and they're kind of running parallel lines. They've had a few encounters with One Punch Man, but he usually just walks away. He usually, One Punch Man is like, oh, I gotta go get my groceries instead, and they just leaves him. And it's like, what? I was here to fight. Introduced early in the series that this is the main villain, and he kind of takes a different role. It's like where One Punch Man's doing this for fun. This Garo guy is doing it because it's like, why do the monsters always have to be bad guys? And he's fighting to basically show that, monsters can be kind of good guys, but at the same point, he does everything bad. And then there is one character, I forgot, that shows up in One Punch Man that you may have to avoid with your kids. I can't remember what episode it's in.
Okay.
Or what.
Which episode do I need to watch that?
Yeah, get the TiVo ready. Right, We're going to go panel by panel. No, it's basically this like lady dominatrix kind of a character.
Okay, yeah, I'll look that one up.
Yeah. Wow. for the safety of my kids,
for the podcast, I'll look it up to make sure I know what you're talking about.
Yeah,
I may have to watch it twice. You know how I am.
Yeah, it's the first time was just like, okay, now I got the shock out of the way. Now I have to assess it from a very direct approach.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. I'm old, but I'm not that old.
I ain't blind.
I am blind.
It's a fun story. The monsters get more and more ridiculous. The side characters are just as goofy.
So, if I bought book 2, would it be just more of the same? Like, or is there a little deeper meaning, or is it another 200 pages of him looking for a challenge?
Looking for a real fight, yeah.
And then not much.
I would honestly, do you have access to Hulu?
But I can, with a click of a button.
Yeah, because One Punch Man, season
7-day
1
free trial.
Yeah, season 1 of One Punch Man, and it's dubbed into English, so you don't have to read the subtitles.
Is it Christian Bale?
It's done well, dubbed well. It is on Hulu.
Okay.
So if you wanted to watch it instead of reading it, and like I said, the anime, because we went through, your book is 8 chapters, so it was 8 weeks of the comic in the Shonen Jump publication, because they come out weekly. Is 8 chapters and 8.5 technically, because there's a little like side story in the back that gets all wrapped up in 2 episodes.
Okay.
So, you get a better sense of it when it's in an episode, a full 22-minute episode. The animation is really quite fluid. They keep, and they do a really good job about, bouncing back and forth between Sayamata's face being completely blank to being crazy amount of detail. It's pretty good, and there's a decent translation between the manga and the anime. So you'd be able to burn through quite a few in not very long, not a whole lot of time.
That's not bad. This might be a shorter episode, and I don't mind that, but if you have a different opinion on One Punch Man, please let me know.
You don't have to let me know. I already have my opinion.
Right. What would you recommend me to read next, Mike?
If you were to read anime, or read manga, or
to something that will blow me away on what the potential for manga can be.
Mercy.
Or at least something with a bit more story is what I'm looking for. It doesn't have to be superheroes.
Okay. I
think about it. We could talk about it next time.
Yeah, because there's something I can say kind of right off that I really enjoy, and I'm losing the name of it. It was they did a version of the Count of Monte Cristo. I don't know if you're familiar with that particular. I think it was Alexander Dumas. But they did it as an anime, and I don't know if they did it as manga. Ganku Tasau. I butcher these words. But look up, and I'm going to spell it for you because I'm going to butcher it. GANKUTSUOU. If you can watch the anime, I have not seen anime done this way before, or cartoons done this way before. Because, I mean, they took like a Gustav Klimt approach to the animation, and so they've got basically like these gold leaf. There's ridiculous patterns, and the patterns don't move, even though the figures move. And then instead of the count in the book, the Count of Monte Cristo, the guy's sent to prison. Years later, he comes back. He gets out of prison and kind of exacts his revenge. In this one, he's basically a space vampire. So he's kind of the undead because if you think about it, like you're in prison, you might as well be dead. You escape prison, you're dead again. As far as the anime goes, that was a great series. I don't know if they ever converted that over to manga, and I don't know if it would.
Says they did.
Oh yeah, it wouldn't translate as well because the anime, because of how it was done in the animation, was phenomenal.
It says it was adapted into manga, which ran in monthly afternoon from May 2005 to May 2008.
Now, and then you might need to give me a little bit as far as like, do you want horror? Do you want a classic tale retold? Do you want something familiar but with a Japanese twist on it?
Well, let me think about that, and we can talk about it.
Kind of narrow it down a little bit and see what you're really, really interested in. But
because I really want to like something. But my crotchety old manness, I'm 51 now, and, it just takes root, and it just will not allow me to like this book.
One thing I could probably recommend right off the gates is something just because it goes back to our childhood, and that's the space battleship Yamato.
Okay.
And they did an update to that.
Wave motion gun. Wildstar.
Yeah, Derek Wildstar, Mark Venture, Admiral
Venture.
What was that captain's name? I can't remember. That's obviously that goes back to when we watched it as Star Blazers.
I love Star Blazers, but I only like it because of my childhood. I've seen episodes since. And just the 70s music takes me right back out of the story. Like if they updated some of the music, maybe. But the Baka Chihuahua, and it's,
a little less of the disco.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they did, as far as the anime, not necessarily manga, but they did an update. So it's, Space Battleship Yamato 2199.
Nice.
And it's updating the animation style, so you would get it to have less of the chicka chicka wah wah, less of the Rockford Files music in the background going on.
Oh wait,
and but they did do a live action version, and they captured the entire first season in a singular movie.
Ooh.
And they did an amazingly well done job. They kind of took a little bit of that you can see elements of the costuming that was in, in the 70s, but then they made it in like white leather instead of, fabric jackets and so forth. So it was like this leather, it looked a lot like the X-Men, but instead of black leather, they were wearing white leather with the red, striping and so forth. But yeah, they did. And it was well done, and they pay homage to the entire several episodes of the original cartoon.
Hurry up, Wildstar! You have only 14 days to save the Earth.
You gotta get to planet Iskandar. Yeah.
I feel you just sent me down a foxhole that I can't get out of now. Because, I'm going to go research all this stuff.
Yeah, so there's in some ways I like it more just because of the nostalgia of it, and the Captain Harlocks, the Yamato, the Speed Racer, the Mazinger, the any of this stuff, especially in the cartoon, the animated versions of it. I loved all that stuff when you got it, because I had never known that a cartoon could
Starhawks.
Carry on from
It's a Space Hawk.
could carry on from one episode to another. I'd never seen a serialized cartoon before, and then Star Blazers kicked in, and it's like, we've got a slingshot around Saturn, and then for some reason when they time travel or they travel through space in Saturn, they wind up seeing dinosaurs. No idea why that happened. But I still remember that scene vividly. Like, they traveled in warp, and then all of a sudden dinosaurs show up. That doesn't make any sense, but what you gonna do?
Science.
Yeah. But yeah, if you can find it on Blu-ray or whatever, the live action one,
okay,
they did a really good job.
I will look that
like
up.
$21.99 is also really well done, because they just basically updated it to the current standards of animation. And
I've read the Spider-Man $21.99 comic. It's got to be close to that, right?
Yep. And as our lunch pal Stan Lee
2099
said, don't forget to read your 2099s.
Niner. No.
It's like, thanks, Stan. Excelsior. Some of those are really, really good. I always have a soft spot for giant robots. So from what we call Gigantor, the Big O, if you can get that on DVD, that's a fantastic.
It has a different meaning here in America.
Yeah, there's a few.
I look it up and I suddenly get blocked out of it.
Don't let the missus look at your search history.
I see you're looking about the
It's anime. I promise.
That doesn't make it better if I scream it's anime.
Not really. Yeah, more often than not, it's like,
what?
What? Wait, what?
Oh, you're one of those.
Yeah, it's cultural enlightenment is what I'm looking at. But yeah, and there's always the classics. If I could jump into the anime, and I know we're trying to look at it more on the comic book front, but Castle of Castellana, butchering it, but that was a Lupin the Third movie that Hayao Miyazaki did before he jumped into the Studio Ghibli stuff.
That's really what you want me to watch is Lupin the Third, because that's like the 5th time you've mentioned that, and yet you didn't even have it on your top 10 list.
Yeah, no, it's oh man. Well, the thing is like, yeah, the comics are a lot different than the cartoons. The Lupin the Third, the first, just came out as a CG animated, set in the right time period, has the right feel. It's a great movie. The CG work is fantastic, and they translated Lupin and Company into 3D very, very well. That one I would recommend, and I don't think there's anything questionable in that one. Now, if you get the manga, especially the early manga of Lupin the Third, it's pretty racy. It can be, some of the characters, especially Lupin's, Lupin himself is very much on the kind of a James Bond knockoff.
Say no more.
And and there was actually the characters that were developed for Lupin the Third, were way too Western. So they threw in a character as a samurai to kind of help bring it back in as being, this is truly Japanese.
Right. Yeah.
So, I would recommend, there's like, if you're a Star Trek fan, not to watch any episodes if Will Riker does not have a beard. It's kind of one of those things where you can kind of go like, ooh, avoid those because,
or if the counselor's mom's in the episode.
Oh, yeah. Which was what? Roddenberry's wife? Or
Yep.
at one point wife? and the voice of the computer.
Skip.
Yeah, and the same thing. If Avery Brooks has hair, don't watch it at Deep Space Nine. Lupin, they kind of broke it out by what color his coat was. So he's had a blue coat, a red coat, and a green coat, and those are kind of different series, different eras. They all have their own, purpose and their intent, and they have a very distinct story feel to it. But it went through different animation houses and different eras, so kind of like whatever coat he's wearing, if you like that one, watch the ones with that coat. But if he's not, if you watch one that doesn't have that coat, give it a try. And if you like that, then continue. But if you don't like it, then avoid all the episodes that have that coat. That helps at all. But it's something my son and I really enjoy, is just his antics. He's this anti-hero. He's a thief, gentleman thief, if you would. The cast of characters, I think you'd like the cast of characters, but like I said, your best bet would be to watch a couple of the key movies before diving into any series or any of the Monkey Punch comics that were done back, or manga done at the time. But
if you have a suggestion for us, please give me a suggestion on what to
otherwise, Mike's going to keep rambling.
Mike will keep telling me about things. And that's okay too. That's why I hired him. Yeah, still waiting for that paycheck, I'm sure. But that's why Mike's here. And if you have any other comments, you want to Gmail them to us. We are at and this is why I love comics at gmail.com. Check us out on the Twitter. Join our Facebook group. It's and this is why I love comics podcast. We are going to post a little bit more on that about what we're coming up on next. I think we're almost at the end of our first 6 months of this year of what we posted. So we're going to have to figure out what we're doing the next 6 months. I can't believe the year's half over already. We're almost on our 1 year anniversary of doing this podcast, Mike. So that's exciting.
Time flies.
Next episode, we can talk about that a little bit more. And I'm sure we'll have celebration and we'll have ticket information for you. And this is why I love comics. I'm Andy.
I'm Mike.
And we'll talk to you later. We'll see you next time. Right now,
Konnichiwa.
There's some Thunder Chicken. Thanks again for sponsoring us. And go check them out on Spotify.
Why don't you lick my cuts? Wounds like these go through my veins. Why don't you lick my cups? Go up and down my veins. What you want, nobody. What you want to use me. What you want, nobody. You will rise, but someday.
Well, I got to ask, as I always do, the temperature hasn't really dropped a whole lot by us. And even though I have a window open, it's not really that cool in my studio.
Are you sweating your nuts off? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I got some paper towels.
I'm dabbing.
But, they just, I kind of go through a few runs of them where it's like, I'll let some dry out, and then while the others are, absorbent. So I kind of, trying to keep it green and all, so
right,
reuse, reduce. But I've got a fan going, and I don't know if you can hear it, that little buzz or anything, or not really. If you can't hear it, that'd be great. But
from all the mail we get, you have more than one fan.
Huzzah! Here it is, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.
And he's gone for the evening. He's done what he set out to do, and he did it in record time.
I think you're okay.
Okay.
It sounds like you're in traffic.